Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to crochet these cute little bubble tea plushies so you can turn them into keychains if you'd like. I've got the exact kind of keychain attachment that I used in the video description below. And then you can use the same beads that I used for your bubbles, or you can use safety eyes, or you can even embroider them on. Really the sky's the limit on how you want to do the bubbles, but I have those in the description, as well as all the other materials that you'll need, and the link to the full pattern write-up that you can find on my blog if you'd rather read the pattern than follow along with the video. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Alright, so we are getting started on the bubble tea cup. I'm going to be using this light brown color because I'm going for just your standard milk tea here. We're going to begin by either forming a magic ring or by making a slip knot and chaining 2 stitches. I know that each crocheter is a little bit different, so I don't want to say that you have to magic ring if you don't like making the magic ring. I personally prefer starting with a magic ring, so I'm going to go ahead and pop my tutorial on how to make this in the top right if you'd like to learn how I make my magic rings. Alright, so I've got that magic ring formed and I'm ready for round 1. We're going to be putting 6 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring, and we're going to be working in both the ring and over the tail that we used to tie it as well. I also like to make yarn under, yarn over single crochet stitches. It makes that little X shape on the finished stitch. So I'll take my hook and go through and then yarn under and draw up a loop, and then yarn over and draw through both. So there's that first single crochet stitch. I'm going to mark it and then keep adding stitches here. So I have 6 total for round 1. Alright, when you've got all 6 of your single crochet stitches, you can of course double check by counting that interlocking V shape here along the side of our work, not counting the loop on our hook of course. We're going to pull the tail of the ring to close off round 1, and we're ready for round 2. We're going to be increasing in each stitch, so 2 single crochet stitches in each 1 stitch from the previous round. So I'm going to push through the front and the back loop there of that first stitch. Make the first part of my increase and mark it, and then finish it off by placing a second single crochet stitch in that same place. And I'm just going to keep increasing by putting 2 stitches in the same 1 stitch from the previous round, doubling those 6 stitches into 12 for the end of round 2. Alright, that's the end of round 2 for me. I'm going to give my magic ring tail one final pretty tight tug here, flip my work over, and then I like to give my magic ring tail a short trim. I don't trim it all the way off, just short. I find this gets in my way as I work, and I like to trim it as soon as I can. Alright, so that's round 2 done. We're ready for round 3. We've got some asterisks here with some instructions to repeat. So just like we did with round 2, we're going to do everything inside of them, the amount of times outside indicated, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, and then 1 increase, so 2 single crochet stitches in the second stitch of the round. And we're going to repeat that pattern of 1 single crochet stitch, increase, 6 times total, so we're going to keep repeating that. There's my second repetition. Alright, so that is the end of round 3 for me. I'm ready for round 4. And round 4, we're going to be working in the back loop only. So far we've been going through both. We've been pushing through both sides of that stitch from the previous round. But for round 4, we're only going to be grabbing the back loop. So I like to take my hook and kind of push it between that interlocking V shape, snagging just the loop that's closest to the underside of my work. And then we're going to be making nice loose slip stitches all the way around for this round. So I like to slip stitch by yarning over, drawing through the fabric, and then drawing that loop through the only other loop on my hook, making sure not to pull too tightly. We're going to be working in these slip stitches next round, and if they're really tight, it's very frustrating to try to get your single crochet stitches to work. So go nice and slow, make them nice and loose. Alright, that's round 4 done. I'm ready for round 5. We're still in the back loop only, but we're back to single crocheting now. So we're going to go through that next slip stitches back loop, make a single crochet stitch, and then just keep single crocheting in each back loop all the way around. Alright, that's round 5 done. Then rounds 6 through 10, we're just going to continue adding 1 single crochet stitch to each stitch, so not back loop only anymore, all the way around. So that's 5 rounds of just regular single crochet stitches all the way around. I'll see you back here whenever I'm about to make the last stitch of round 10 though, because we're going to be pulling through those last 2 loops of that last single crochet stitch in our new color. So I will see you then. Alright, so I've got 1 more single crochet stitch here left in round 10, and we're going to be changing colors, so we need to pull through the last 2 loops of this last stitch with our new color, which is going to be white. So let's start by going through that last stitch, yarning under and drawing up a loop. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim my main color here, this brown, and leave a short tail. Don't need very much, 4 to 6 inches. And then we're going to be pulling through these 2 loops on our crochet hook with our new color, which is white. So I like to take my white and kind of make a little loop here with it, tail over on the right hand side, and then pinch the 2 sides of that together to form a little baby loop here in your hand. And I'm going to put that loop on my crochet hook and then pull it through those 2 loops. And then we need to drop the little tail to the back with the brown tail that we cut. And I also like to give them both a gentle tug. Alright, and we are ready for our next round, which is going to be round 11. We're going to work our tails in for round 12, so for now just leave them at the back side of your work. And for round 11, we're going to be, again, making some back loop only slip stitches all the way around in our new color. So we'll go through, yarn over, draw up a loop, and then draw through. Again, making these nice and loose, just like with the bottom of the cup. We don't want them to be too tight. But working in the back loop all the way around. Alright, so that's round 11 done for me. I'm ready for round 12. We're going to be working our tails in as we go for round 12 as well. So let's start by taking those 2 tails and giving them one final tight tug. And then, just like we did when we worked down here at the bottom of the cup, we're going to be in the back loop of the slip stitches, making single crochet stitches. So I'm going to go through this back loop here, lay those 2 tails from my color change over my crochet hook, and then make my single crochet stitch as normal, giving those tails one final tight tug. I like to leave the tails sort of alongside the back of my work so I can slip through the fabric of the work, the back loop, and kind of automatically grab those tails too. But if you have trouble with that, you can of course just continue to sort of manually lay them over. We only need to weave them in for a few stitches. like 5, that should be perfectly fine. So I'm going to take the tails, kind of twist them together here, and push them to the inside of the cup so they stay out of my way, and when we stuff, they'll be hidden inside. Alright, so we're going to continue back loop only single crocheting around. Alright, so that is the end of round 12 for me. Now is a great time to add some stuffing, or if you're going to be using safety eyes to make your bubbles, it's a good time to add those too. So I'm going to pull my crochet hook up long. And if you're using safety eyes to make your bubbles on your cup, now is a great time to add those. So I like to place the bubbles in between rounds 7 and 8 and rounds 5 and 6. It's sort of like there's a top row and a bottom row and they are offset by each other. So rounds 5 and 6 are right above where the bottom of the cup is. That first round is round 5. So you can kind of push the safety eyes through, and then rounds 7 and 8 are going to be these 2 rounds here. And I like to offset the eyes or the bubbles by 2 stitches. So I'll start off by going through and counting 1, 2, and then placing my next. And then just working my way around 1, 2, placing the next. So there should be about 6 of the bubbles in the top round, and then 6 in the lower round, of course offset by 2 stitches. So 1, 2, place. And since amigurumi is a spiral, you'll have to kind of hop back up on the back side here, and then of course keeping them offset and continuing to work around, just adding those bubbles as you go. Or if you're going to be using beads, they look basically the same either way. We can attach the beads at the end of the project. But if you're using safety eyes, I would go ahead and finish up adding the eyes on here because you're going to really need to. We're going to start stuffing and closing off the piece. I'm going to be sewing my bubbles on though, so I'm ready to go ahead and just stuff. So when we stuff our cup, we don't want to add too much. We want the bottom of the cup to stay flat. So I like to add a big handful when I start. And then when I stuff, I like to pull it so that it really sits along the outsides of the cup, and then use my thumb to sort of reinforce that flat shape on the bottom, sort of squashing the cup as I go. All right, and we're going to add just a pinch more later as we continue crocheting. Let's go ahead and keep working on our pattern. So I'll take my hook and go back through that loop I pulled up long and tighten it down. And we are ready for round 13, and we are back in the back loop only, and we're going to start decreasing. So working in the back loop, we're going to place 1 single crochet stitch in the first loop, and then 1 back loop only decrease. And we're going to keep repeating that pattern, 1 single crochet stitch, 1 back loop only decrease, 6 times total. Alright, so there's that last decrease. In the back loop, I'm going to add just a little bit more stuffing here. You really only need a pinch. And then I'm going to really push it so that it fills up the white that we've added. So I'm kind of pushing it towards the outsides of the cup here. Alright, and we're ready for our last round here on the cup, which is round 14. We're going to be decreasing all the way around. We're not in the back loops anymore, going through both the front and the back loop for these decreases. Alright, so there's that last decrease. I'm ready to fasten off. We're going to do that by taking our stitch marker out and slip stitching in the stitch it was just in. And then we are ready to cut a long tail. Don't need a ton, 12 to 14 inches should be more than enough. And we're going to pull that last slip stitch until the tail we cut passes through it, and then tighten it down. And then we're going to set the cup aside because we're going to leave the opening here at the top open until we have the straw. Alright, so let's move on to the straw. Alright, so next up is the straw. I'm using black yarn because I like the way it coordinates with the bubbles, but you can use any color you'd like for the straw. Starting again with another magic ring or a slip knot and a chain 2. Alright, so there's that magic ring form for me. We're going to put 6 single crochet stitches inside for round 1. Alright, when you've got all 6 single crochet stitches, you can close off that first round. And then rounds 2 through 5, just putting 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So I'll see you back here whenever I am at the end of round 5, and we'll fasten this off and then get the cup assembled. Alright, so I just made the last single crochet stitch of round 5 and I'm ready to fasten the straw off. I'll slip stitch to the first stitch of the last round I made there. And then we need to cut a tail to sew with. We don't need very much for this one though. 6 to 8 inches should be perfectly enough. And then we're going to pull until that tail passes through that last slip stitch and then tighten it down. And then we need to weave the tail down along the side and make it so that coming out of that first round that we formed. We're not actually going to be sewing with this tail, we just need to use it to weave the straw into that opening on our cup. So kind of sew your way down through the straw here, sort of just picking stitches on the way to the bottom. I'm going to come up through the center of my magic ring. Alright, so now that we have sewn our tail to the bottom of the straw, we need to tie a surface knot, because if you pull this tail, it sort of pulls the straw where we've sewn, and we don't want that. So here at the bottom of the straw, we're going to make a quick surface knot by looping the black onto the surface of our work, snagging some of the fabric there next to that loop. You see I'm kind of closing the circuit here. I'm going to sew up through the loop and it's going to wrap itself around and tie a knot. And now when we pull on this tail, it's not going to kind of crimp or dent the straw, which is good. Alright, so to get it attached to the cup that we've already crocheted, we're going to take that black tail that we have already sewn with and it's still threaded through our needle. We're going to pass it straight through the fluff at the top of the cup and then send it out through the bottom magic ring on the cup. And I like to pull this tail and also lift these stitches here so that the straw is really wedged in those 6 decreases at the top of the cup. So I'm going to give that another tug. Alright, and then I can unthread my needle with this black. I'm just going to leave it for now and thread my needle with the white that we have left over. And we're going to sew through the last 6 decreases and the fabric of the straw. So I'm going to grab this one here and sew across through the fabric of the straw and into the stitch on the opposite side here. And then I'm going to do the same. I'll go to this next stitch, sew through it, and grab the one across. And this should be the last one. We only have 6 stitches. And I'll sew through one more time just to be extra secure. And I like to use my fingers and sort of flatten the top of the cup here. But that gets the straw attached. So then we can weave this white tail in. I'm going to pull it really tightly. and then make another surface knot here. So make a little loop on the surface of my work, sew up through some of the white fabric of the top of the cup, and up through that loop, and then pull to tie a knot. And I'll weave it in, make it come out of the bottom of the cup too. Then you can unthread your needle, and then pull the black tail one last time, and the white tail, and then we can give them a trim. Alright, so that is the cup assembled. So if you have already attached the safety eyes, then you are done, you're good to go. If you're going to be using beads, I like to attach them now. Alright, so to attach the beads, I'm going to be using some of this black embroidery floss. And I have my 6mm beads here in this little cubby on this container. So I'm going to start by finding where rounds 7 and 8 are. So this is 5, the one right above the front loop left behind, 6, 7, and 8, which are these 2 rounds here. And I'm going to send my needle in between the spaces of stitches and then kind of sew up in that space and leave a little tail on the outside of my work because I'm going to be coming back to it. So then we're going to just take one bead at a time, thread them through on our needle, and then sew. I like to sew basically right back down where I came up through, and then I'm going to count 1, 2 stitches and then come up through and then pull to secure the bead onto the cup. And I'm just going to keep working my way around, sewing 1 bead on every 2 stitches here in the space between round 7 and 8. Alright, so there's that last bead on that top round. So I'm going to go ahead and sew it on and then come up between the spaces, the space between rounds 5 and 6, which it should be about here. And then I'm going to come up so that I'm offset between the last and first bead that I attached. So our second round of bubbles are going to go on, so they're sort of bisecting where the first ones go, sort of like a zigzag pattern here. Alright, so here's that last bubble, and I'm going to sew down and then come up through the space between stitches that I left that little tail on the outside of my work. Then I can unthread my needle here, and I'm going to tie these 2 tails together pretty tightly, and I'm going to double, maybe even triple knot these. So there's that first, knot it a second time, and I'll go ahead and do a third one here. Then I can trim. I'm going to trim these 2 tails that are left that I've tied together really short so they're even with the fabric basically. And then the reason we came up between the space between stitches is that we can sort of just squeeze and move our fabric and it's going to take the knot to the inside. If yours is being really stubborn, you can take your crochet hook and pull the fabric of your work up, which is going to hide that knot to the inside. Alright, so there are the bubbles added on to our bubble tee. We can also add a keychain attachment onto this here as well. Alright, so I have my keychain attachment. I have these really cute little star-shaped ones, and if you want to use the same ones as me, I've got them linked below. Just go ahead and open up that jump ring. And then I like to make mine so it goes through some of the fabric here really, really close to where the straw is. So just kind of dig the jump ring through, and then we can pinch it closed. Alright, so with that keychain attachment added, your bubble tee is done. So thank you so much for watching, and if you would maybe consider subscribing to my channel, it tells me that you like what I do and you'd like to see more. Alright, as always, happy crafting everyone.